So back in 2003, I was a senior director with Dell Computer. I was very well compensated. I lived in a beautiful house on a golf course with a pool in Round Rock, Texas. I was treated kindly by my coworkers and my supervisors and my employees. It was an ideal working environment, yet I was miserable. Um, the worst part of the week was Sunday night only because I knew I had to go back and do that job again. And it wasn't horrible, it was boring. It didn't have meaning. I didn't really care about what I was doing. And I knew that I wanted to do something else. And I had a real positive experience as a child with a counselor. He was actually a psychiatrist, but it was a counseling session in a very short amount of time. Um, this man lifted a great weight off of my shoulders, and I never forgot that. I never forgot what that man did for me, and I doubt he even remembered who I was a week later. He had no idea, but he had this enormous impact on my life, and I knew I wanted to do that. I wanted to be that for someone. And I had toyed around with the idea of going back to school and getting the education necessary to become a counselor or a therapist. And I was always afraid of, well, how can I afford that? How can I walk away from all this money I'm making? And it really came to a crisis in 2003. And I quit, much to the shock of everyone around me. I quit my job. I enrolled in school full time at St. Edward's University in Austin, Texas. And I took a job working for a nonprofit, um, doing the as much counseling as I could do without a license. I was working with foster kids and homeless youth and teaching them job skills. So they called the job a job developer or a career counselor. It didn't require a license. So I got my start, and that job salary paid less than my annual bonus at Dell. I ended up selling that big house, and I actually sold almost everything in it because I moved into a little tiny place that had low rent. I turned my life upside down to remake myself and find whatever meaning I was seeking. And I got to tell you, I wasn't able to explain it much better then than I am now. And over those years, it's now 2024, and it's been over 20 years since I made that decision and stepped through that threshold. And I can tell you right now, I don't regret it. It's amazing things that have happened to me. And in the past several years, I have been exploring the idea of empathy and kindness as a basis for who I want to be in this world. And I found it to be pretty difficult because as much as I want to be kind and have appropriate empathy, um, emotions and ego often get in the way. It's difficult work. Well, I found something in the past couple of years that really energized me in a profound way, and that is the Apple series Ted Lasso. And you're going to wonder, that energized you? Well, it informed my mission, my personal mission, kindness and empathy, and it also energized my counseling practices. And it energized the way I reach out and help the people in counseling. And it was coming from a place I wasn't expecting. I kept hearing about this show, Ted Lasso, all this buzz about it, and all I knew was it was, a guy from Saturday Night Live. He's um, it's a fish out of water story. He's a mediocre college football coach in the United States, and he gets hired on to coach a premier soccer team in London. And he doesn't know anything about soccer. And it just seemed that your typical comedy, fish out of water, silly jokes kind of thing. And I couldn't imagine that it would be something that I'd be interested in. Yet I kept hearing about it. I kept hearing how the high quality. So I finally gave up and I watched the first episode and I was hooked and stunned, and every single episode got to me on a really visceral level. Um, it was a fish out of water story, but it was so much more. It was funny and touching, and I tell you, I wept more than I laughed in the 3 seasons of Ted Lasso. Uh, Jason Sudeikis, who stars and is one of the producers and creators, was asked on an interview I saw all these psychological and emotional issues that you bring up in the series. Did you hire a psychologist as a consultant? And he laughed and he said, no. We didn't have to because every single person in the writer's room was in therapy. So that's where they got this material about emotional health and kindness and empathy and the road to get there. And I'm like, this is what I'm interested in. This is what I want. And especially in the past few years, where I've seen more and more lack of empathy and lack of kindness, uh, being people being mean-spirited, bullies. If you want to see how bad it is on the internet, start a YouTube channel and read the comments that people put on. And you'll go to YouTube channels and look for those comments. And unless it's a big channel, you won't see them because we have the ability to um, monitor the comments, delete them, and the really nasty people, we can just block them from the channel. So, but as creators, we see them all. We have to make a decision about the comments. And it's the nastiness um, and the divisiveness in our country really, really bothered me. And one of the things you're going to notice here, I'm looking at that's not Ted Lasso. The first video I'm going to show you isn't Ted Lasso, but it's a great introduction to the concept of kindness and empathy. I saw this. This is the Governor Pritzker of Illinois, and he's giving a commencement speech at Northwestern University. And what he says here, I think, is remarkable. We'll listen to it. I'll stop it and I'll talk a little bit about it. But I have to mute myself here. Hang on.
Way to spot an idiot. Look for the person who is cruel. Let me explain. When we see someone who doesn't look like us, or sound like us, or act like us, or love like us, or live like us, the first thought that crosses almost everyone's brain is rooted in either fear or judgment, or both. That's evolution. We survived as a species by being suspicious of things that we aren't familiar with. In order to be kind, we have to shut down that animal instinct and force our brain to travel a different pathway. Empathy and compassion are evolved states of being. They require the mental capacity to step past our most primal urges. This may be a surprising assessment because somewhere along the way in the last few years, our society has come to believe that weaponized cruelty is part of some well-thought-out master plan. Cruelty is seen by some as an adroit cudgel to gain power. Empathy and kindness are considered weak. Many important people look at the vulnerable only as rungs on a ladder to the top. I'm here to tell you that when someone's path through this world is marked with acts of cruelty, they have failed the first test of an advanced society. They never forced their animal brain to evolve past its first instinct. They never forged new mental pathways to overcome their own instinctual fears. And so, their thinking and problem solving will lack the imagination and creativity that the kindest people have in spades. Over my many years in politics and business, I have found one thing to be universally true. The kindest person in the room is often the smartest.
Now, you know what I want?
So that piece, that speech really spoke to me on a deep level. And it reminded me of an old movie. I remember The African Queen with Katharine Hepburn and Humphrey Bogart, where Humphrey Bogart plays a kind of rough and tumble riverboat captain, and Katharine Hepburn is a refined, educated, higher class woman who is kind of trapped on the boat in a situation with him, and his behavior is is very impolite and crude. And I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact words, but she calls him out on his behavior, and he said, "I can't help it; it's my nature." And she looks at him and she said, "Your job as a human being is to rise above your nature." And decades later, I'm hearing Governor Pritzker say exactly the same thing. And it really speaks to the evolution that I want to be a part of. So the the next scene here is where you can see there's that's Ted Lasso, that's the coach, and he's the setting is he's walked into the locker room, and the I can't remember whether they've just taken a big loss or it's halftime and they're getting beaten, but they're dejected. They're losing. Things are not going well, and they're we're as an audience going, okay, Ted, this great man that has amazing things to say. By this time in the series, you're used to him saying amazing things, and you're wondering what is he going to say to these guys? And what he said surprised me. So check it out.
Don't mess around with the belief that I matter, you know, regardless of what I do or don't achieve, or the belief that we all deserve to be loved, whether we've been hurt or maybe we've hurt somebody else. Or what about the belief of hope? Yeah, that's what I want to mess with. Believing that things can get better, that I can get better, that we will get better. Oh man, to believe in yourself, to believe in one another, man, that's fundamental to being alive.
So clearly, no one was expecting that speech. I know I wasn't. And it resonated profoundly with me because I'd been struggling personally with my own self image and what I thought about myself. And as I listened to him, I realized that most of my life I've been placing value on myself based upon essentially my achievements. And I also noticed that was a theme with people that I had in counseling with me that were fed this belief that the more you achieve, the more valuable you are. The better job, getting into the better school, um, the better relationship, better kids, the better stuff, better car. All these things conspire to um, have us define value based on things and situations that we get or fail to get. And he used the word, I want to fool around with this idea. And the idea that he wants to fool around with is that that's false. It's a lie, right? It's um, not true that our value is based on what we achieve or what we don't achieve. He's saying, he's proposing that we are born and we come into this planet, into this life with inherent value as a gift. I remember seeing a thing, Neil deGrasse Tyson, the scientist, the astrophysicist, talks about the odds of any of us becoming born and being a human being are astronomical odds, that it's the odds of being born are worse odds than winning the lottery. It's like literally most human beings that could have been born by far are never born. So we come into this life winning the lottery and we don't realize it. And that we are given this gift of value. And he goes on to say, because of that, we all, because of that value that we come into this earth with, we deserve to be loved, right? And that's not a promise that we'll be loved the way we want by who we want. Um, and a lot of that is determined by our behavior. And by behavior, I don't mean achievement or not achievement. I mean our interpersonal behaviors with the other human beings will largely drive whether we are loved in this life. And these guys sitting in the locker room, uh, being stunned uh, that they're being told something they weren't expecting. He's basically saying, "Yeah, you've lost or you're losing this soccer game, but that doesn't have anything to do with your value as a human being and whether or not you're loved as a human being," which most people understand that those things are far more important than the achievement of winning or losing a game. The screen there, you'll see a guy. This is a character. His name is Roy Kent, and Roy Kent is the captain of this soccer team. And I guess I'll get flamed in the comments. They call it football. They don't call it soccer. Um, but he is the captain, and he is at the end of his career. He was, and this will be important later because he's in another scene that I think is really powerful. But Roy was a young superstar. He was the it guy, and now he's getting older and he's slowing down. His experience has brought him to being the captain of the team. And what he's doing here is there was a game where one of his younger players had heard someone insult him from the stands during the game, and he actually went up into the stands after the fan, which is a huge no-no. And he got what's called a red card, which means he was taken out of the game for that. And it was a horrible thing for a player to do, to go after a fan in the stands. And after the game, this room that he's in was filled with members of the press, and everyone, especially the owner of the team who was standing off on the side here, was expecting Ted, the coach, to come in and explain this, because Ted by this time had gotten this reputation of, being able to say the right thing at the right time, and that brilliance was becoming evidence of that. Ted'll take care of this, and uh, instead of Ted, this guy walks in, and what I didn't mention is usually every other word out of his mouth is an F-bomb, and he's a very angry, impolite, crusty guy. So the look on the owner's face is, oh my God, what's going on here? And he comes in and he sits down and addresses the press, and let's listen to what he says.
Yeah, all right. You got me today. Any questions? Fucking hell. You, 5 o'clock Shadowhead.
Coach Kent, do you or the organisation condone what Isaac McAdoo did today?
What a stupid fucking question. Of course we don't. What Isaac did was awful. He was lucky he only got a red card.
Okay, so why did he do it?
When I was first coming up through Sunderland, there was an old timer on the team, local guy. He and his wife were about to have their first kid, so during training one day, I made a joke that statistically, I was probably the real dad. And the boys fell about laughing, but he went fucking nuts. He battered me, properly. I had a black eye, chipped tooth, 3 broken ribs. I couldn't play for 6 games. He got booted off the team. After that, no club would go near him. Then in the summer, after I could breathe again, I bumped into him in a pub and I got the chance to say sorry for my stupid fucking joke. And he got to tell me he and his wife had lost the baby a month before all that went down. He hadn't told anyone. Kept it all inside. Look, I get that some people think if they buy a ticket, they've got the right to yell whatever abusive shit they want at footballers. But they're not just footballers. They're also people. And none of us know what is going on in each other's lives. So for Isaac to do what he did today, even though it was wrong, I give him love. And as for why he did what he did, that's none of my fucking business.
You're going to see that these scenes get to me, even though I've seen them so many times. What you just saw was a incredible example of empathy. Sometimes people wonder, what's the difference between empathy and sympathy? Well, sympathy is I may feel bad for you and I may tell you, I'm so sorry that that happened to you. I may send you a sympathy card or flowers. It doesn't require me to really fully understand the emotion or emotions that you're feeling. Empathy requires that. Empathy is about fully understanding the emotions that someone is experiencing. And what that takes is a person using their imagination to find a way to pretend that they are in the shoes of that person and they see the world through their eyes. And if you're successful in doing that, then you will experience personally the same emotion or very close to it that they're feeling. In this case, Roy had a similar experience. right? He was on the other side of it, right? He's the one that got attacked by someone, and it seemed completely unreasonable until he found out what was going on in that man's life, and it touched him in a way where he could easily imagine the pain that man felt, and he could easily understand the anger that came up, the aggression, and what he did. So that enabled him to, not even knowing, and especially he pointed out, I don't know what this guy was going through, and I may never know that, but because of my experience, I know what it could have been like for him to lose that control. And I don't know what's going on in his life, but I'm going to give him my love, even though he was wrong. Empathy. Pretty amazing. Now, this next scene, this is Ted sitting in his desk, and the character that you're going to see come in is Rebecca, beautiful woman that is the owner of the team and the one that hired Ted. And in the very beginning, people wonder why would she hire this guy that on the surface is incompetent for this job. And you find out in the first episode, you find out what her motivation is that she was involved in a horrible divorce, and her wealthy husband cheated on her, humiliated her, and she's very, very resentful, angry, and hurt. And in the divorce settlement, she got the team, and she knows how incredibly important this team was to him. Not to her, but to him. But she got it. And to get back at him, she was going to burn it to the ground. And the first step was pull in a coach that's incompetent, make a mockery of the team. And that's what she did. And that was her motive. And she took every opportunity she could to further sabotage Ted here to make sure that he failed so she could hurt her ex-husband, the man that hurt her. And over time, she got to know Ted and started to like him and started to admire him. And she started feeling guilty. And one day she walked in to his office, and this is what happened.
Ted, I lied to you. I hired you because I wanted this team to lose. I wanted you to fail. And I sabotaged you every chance I've had. It was me who hired that photographer to take the photo of you and Keeley. I set up the interview with Trent Krim, hoping that he would humiliate you. And I instigated the transfer of Jamie Tart, even though you'd asked me not to. This club is all that Rupert has ever cared about, and I wanted to destroy it. To cause him as much pain and suffering as he has caused me. And I didn't care who I used or who I hurt. All you good people just trying to make a difference. Ted, I'm so sorry. If you want to quit or call the press, I'll completely understand.
I forgive you.
You would? Why?
Divorce is hard. And it doesn't matter if you're the one leaving or if you're the one who got left. It makes folks do crazy things.
So this is another example of the power of empathy and the power of forgiveness. Ted is in the middle of getting divorced. His wife didn't come with him to London. She stayed home with his son, and he was heartbroken over his marriage was not going to work, and he was getting a divorce. and this is extremely painful for him. There are a couple of things that I think are important here in the scene that you see. One is when Rebecca's delivering her apology, her amends to him, you can see how deeply she felt, right? It wasn't a stoic delivery of an apology. You can tell she was really crushed by the realization that she'd behaved so badly. That's a great lesson when you are wrong and you want to make amends to someone. Really opening up and showing them the feelings that you have about it will go a long way to helping the other person, find their empathy, which Ted did. These are incredible actors. You look at Ted's face as she's delivering this news, and you can see the hurt as he is understanding these things that happened to him that were very hard and difficult for him were caused deliberately by her. He was very hurt by that. And as those emotions passed over his face and he stood up and walked up to her and said, "I forgive you," the confusion on her face is, why? Why would you forgive me? And his answer was, divorce is hard. And you know where that was coming from. He knew how hard his divorce was on him. So he could put himself in her shoes and he could understand why she behaved the way she did, even though it was wrong. And her genuine remorse was, and his willingness to forgive is a recipe for two people to really bond and develop some real healthy emotional intimacy. And that's what happened here. This next scene actually involves Rebecca and her ex-husband. Ted and Rebecca are in a bar, and the ex-husband comes in with his new wife. And to make a long story short, he's a really talented darts player, and he challenges Ted to a game of darts. And what they bet is that somehow he's gotten through his wife a piece of the team back. And he said, "Ted, if I win, I get to go in the next game or the next three games or something, I get to go in and pick the lineup, essentially step in and do the coaching instead of Ted, which would be a humiliation for Ted, but more so for Rebecca to allow him back in that door to his team." And surprisingly, um, uh, Ted accepts the challenge, and the first thing that happens is the guy's name is Rupert, the ex-husband. He pulls a gold case out of his pocket. He opens it up, and there's these beautiful custom darts, and you go, "Oh no, Ted's in trouble." But let's see what happens.
I forgot I'm left-handed. Oh.
180!
William Rupert, get in!
Shut your stupid little twat mouth, or I will shut it for you.
Shall I be giving you the line-up card now, Ted? I shall be putting Yobasanya back on defence where he belongs.
That's exactly what I said, didn't I?
No, it's not all Ted's fault. My ex-wife's the one who brought the hillbilly to our shores. I know she's always been a bit randy, but I never thought she would fuck over an entire team.
Hey! Better manners when I'm holding a dart. Please. Mate, what do I need to win?
2 triple 20s and a bullseye.
Good luck.
You know, Rupert, guys have underestimated me my entire life. And for years, I never understood why. It used to really bother me. But then one day, I was driving my little boy to school, and I saw this quote by Walt Whitman. It was painted on the wall there. It said, "Be curious, not judgmental." I like that. So I get back in my car, and I'm driving to work, and all of a sudden, it hits me. All them fellas that used to belittle me, not a single one of them were curious. You know, they thought they had everything all figured out, and so they judged everything, and they judged everyone. And I realized that they're underestimating me. Who I was had nothing to do with it. Because if they were curious, they would ask questions. You know? Questions like, have you played a lot of darts, Ted? Which I would have answered, yes, sir. Every Sunday afternoon at a sports bar with my father from age 10 until I was 16 when he passed away. Barbecue sauce. Good game, Rupert.
Come on, let's go.
You are a very lovely consolation prize.
Rebecca, Ted, enjoy your evening. Mate, as always.
Holy shit, that felt good.
That was fun, yeah. Only one thing left to do now.
What's that? Do I have to? Drinks are on me!
Well, this was one of my favorite things, the Walt Whitman quote, where I heard for the first time in this episode, be curious, not judgmental. And that has become, I've drilled that simple quote into my own brain, and I think those words every single day. And I can't think of any client that I've had since understanding that I haven't made that suggestion to my clients. Be curious, not judgmental. It's a powerful thing because, like, back to the first video with Governor Pritzker, it's in our nature to be suspicious and judgmental. And this higher level of being that the human race is aspiring to rises above that, and it rises to not being judgmental and being curious, um, especially when there's conflict between two people. If I find that if I can stop myself and hear those words in my head, instead of rushing to judgment and saying something that pulls the relationship further apart, I hope that I can continue to stop and think, be curious. And what do curious people do? They ask questions, right? And the more questions you ask, the more interaction there is, the more understanding that there is, and the closer people get together when there's more understanding. The ingredients for emotional intimacy between human beings is that kind of authentic communication that starts with curiosity and questions and often is ended abruptly with judgment. So these are the things, these amazing things that I got for my own life and for my counseling practice from Ted Lasso. I hope you've enjoyed it. Take care.